And away we go.
It's episode 15. That's Steve and I'm Al, and this is brought to you by East Side Pies. We are doing, what are these sandwiches?
Chicago-style Italian beef, which you can't get pretty much outside of Chicago, from what I found. Occasionally you might find them somewhere. Usually they're not pretty authentic. This is pretty damn good.
Yeah, we've had a few bites. It's good so far.
Yeah, it's damn good. So basically it's like roast beef, thinly shaved, marinated for a long, extended period of time in Italian au jus sauce, the spices, and then usually you top it with some giardiniera and some sweet peppers. I usually avoid the sweet peppers and just go straight for the giardiniera. But yeah, it's really good. If you ever get a chance, pop in and get one. They make a huge one too, so. And make sure you get the giardiniera. And you might want to get the au jus on the side, because if you don't like your sandwich,
yeah, I mean this one's soaked, but
yeah,
it still tastes good.
In Chicago you can ask for it wet, and they'll dip it, and it's wet, and that's pretty close to being straight up wet. Is what Al got there. So you might want to just ask for the au jus on the side. Anyways, all right, we're going to talk about the Nazification of America.
The fascist USA is basically the running theme of most of what we're going to be talking about today, with the exception of possibly the fourth topic. But okay, to begin, and yes, it might seem like we're beating a dead horse, but there have been developments. The redistricting in Texas. Let's just start it from the furthest and then wind our way back just a little bit.
I'm going to let you talk about this. I'm going to get soda.
Sure.
Continue.
Okay, well, the most critical thing at this point is that it did, which we knew it probably would, but it did pass, which effectively lessens the accurate representation of the state. As I said before, the actual number, let's just use the political math. The actual number of registered Democrats in Texas is somewhere between like 45% or slightly over 50, I forget which. But with redistricting and similar measures, what happens is that it acts as if the Democrats are like 10% instead of the 45% that we actually are. That's the effect of redistricting. To get to this point, we all knew about the Democrats fleeing the state, but when they came back, the thing that was, I don't see how anybody justifies it, but it's already happened now. But one of the representatives, they caught her in the chambers, and they basically said, you are not allowed to leave here until you sign a sheet of paper saying that you are permitting an armed guard to walk around with you wherever you go, so that we make sure that you come back here. And she refused to sign, so they basically locked her in there for over 24 hours. I'm trying to think what else to say about this. The Republican response when they were challenged on doing this was beyond pathetic. I mean, I saw one guy and they said, well, why do you need to do this? And instead of giving a reason, he said, well, because we can't. No, but why do you need to do this? Because we can't. See, that's the thing is, Texas, as I've said over and over again, is already jerry-rigged and gerrymandered in 10 different ways, basically. So there was no political reason to do this. They already had the upper hand. The only thing that really makes sense is, yes, Trump did reach out and say, I want you to do this. And as I said before, yes, they normally do it and we kind of go, yeah, okay, this always happens. But they don't do it in the middle of a decade. They do it once a decade. And they don't do it as a special session. Because if they'd really wanted to do it, they would have just brought it up during the regular session. They actually had to pull 2 special sessions in order to get this to happen.
Okay, well, here we go again, Same old song and dance. These guys cannot win without cheating. They haven't had anybody win without cheating. They've been cheating since day one in this country, as far as.
But now they're going to cry if the Dems do the same thing in California. That's what's funny is they're
it was rigged in the beginning, just for, 6% of the population to vote, and they want to get back to that. So, anyways, as Al said, there's more registered Democrats in Texas than Republicans. However, Texas does have a large number of people that are registered who call themselves independents. But as we all know, that's a Republican in disguise, who sometimes don't like some of the policies when they overreach in terms of some freedoms. Sometimes drug policy, certain things like that. These so-called libertarians who are just, like I said, just racist bigots who don't want to admit that Republicans are fascists. These libertarians always seem to lean so fascist. It's ridiculous at the end of the day. So even if they were trying to pretend to be libertarian, they're not by any stretch of the imagination. But anyways, because they're totally okay with shit like this, which is ridiculous. They're not screaming about this, but Secondly, Al was saying that this proportionate representation, regardless of the fact that there's probably more people leaning to the right in libertarian in Texas in general, the population is still like 60% what you would consider minority, I think, in this.
Well,
50,
over 50% in a lot of the major cities. I'll put it that way.
In the major cities, definitely far outweigh.
Yeah.
And from my understanding is right now with these new redistricting, these numbers are not exact, but it's almost like one Hispanic vote is worth 4 or 5. Like it's 4 to 1, and for black it's like 1 to 10 or 1 to 8 or 1 to 10. So like a white person's vote is worth 10 times more than a black person's vote, and a Hispanic it's like 4 times as much as a Hispanic. But the Hispanic population far outweighs the black community in Texas at least. But this is what they've done throughout the country. So these are groups that are so insanely marginalized. Now they want to talk about diversity, equity, and about people being misrepresented and all these other things, and they are exactly, once again, what they say the problem is from others. It's that projection of everything that they are and do. So yeah, the representation is grossly unfair, grossly disproportionate. It's the only way these guys can fucking win anymore, is by outright lying, falsifying information, and if they don't just hands down tell a lie, the omissions of truth and the distortions of truth are so flagrant that it becomes a lie in essence, because you're not getting the full picture. So you could take any information and just say a few things about it, and what they're saying could be accurate, but in context it's completely different. They're presenting it in such a way.
It's disingenuous at best.
Right, is that it's giving the exact opposite picture of what the reality is, in other words. So, here we go. A group of privileged white, guys dictating the terms of how these elections are going to go. And, and it's funny too, because Charlie Kirk had the audacity to start going after Gavin Newsom for redistricting, threatening to redistrict if Texas gets their redistricting done. And it's like, dude, that's exactly what Texas. You're not screaming about Texas doing it.
And the irony is twofold. First, the only reason why Gavin is even doing it is as kind of a retaliation to what Texas just did. He would not be even discussing it otherwise.
Right.
But on top of which, unlike what happened in Texas, he's actually letting California basically vote on whether they want to do this. Mm-hmm. Texas did no such thing. They did the complete opposite. They in every way, shape, and form gave nobody any choice.
Right. So this all goes back to being disingenuous liars, cheats, patting everything in their favor at all times. And it's disheartening, and unfortunately, when things come to this, go this far to this level of brinksmanship, it's the only way to fight fire is with a controlled fire. So, I was watching this historian who's on TikTok, and he was saying that, every resistance has been met with, every, time there's been any kind of change in progression that was met with resistance of some sort, and a lot of times it was fire. The danger is if you set a fire that is out of control as the one that's attacking you, then things go haywire. So it has to be controlled. So this is an example of Gavin Newsom setting his own fire. You got to have it controlled. You have to have constraints involved with it. You can't let it get out of control, because then you just end up with what you hated. With the same situation you got yourself into.
And as much as possible he is. But again, the funny thing is the narrative that he's doing this out of nowhere when the reality is that he's doing this in direct response to what has already been happening.
Right. So there's going to have to be tactics involved that are very unsavory to combat this. You can't combat a bully. You cannot, and this goes all the way back to some of our in the beginning of when we started these, about what do you do with a bully? Sometimes the only defense you have is to punch him in the face. It's the only way they're going to stop, because all they're going to say is, what are you going to do about it? If the school doesn't stop them, if their parents don't stop them, there's nothing that's going to stop them. All they're going to say is, what are you going to do about it? And they're just going to keep on going and going and going. So something has to stop them. As that historian was saying, though, whatever you have to do in retaliation to end this, you have to live with yourself after. Nobody comes out of this unscathed. Nobody comes out of this on the moral high ground, let's say, because you're going to have to do some unsavory things that in any other circumstance you would not let yourself do, But unfortunately, when you're dealing with these psychopaths, you kind of have to go there. You have to go there because there's no other way. You have to resist. They won't. Sometimes the appeal to logic, first of all, the appeal to logic, no, they don't have any. Secondly, the appeal to emotions and empathy has been erased. Like, it seems like there's no empathy left in this country. I mean, we literally went from, we're going for these people that eat the cats and dogs, which was a lie, and all these criminals, which is an absolute lie. And we'll get into that when we talk about the invasion of the cities, about the criminality of these cities and how they doesn't exist, who the real criminals are. And, so like I said, so this is the situation that you find yourself in. They're making this shit up. So I don't know. But like I said, you're going to have to combat this in the same way and do things that are a little unsavory. Fight back in ways that you might not wanted to, but this is only in resistance to what has been inflicted. And Democrats, look, there has been some of these Democrats, in the past, especially Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all these other ones, a lot of them ones in Congress and stuff, these are neoliberal capitalists. And their foreign policy is no different than Republicans in so many different ways, in a lot of different ways. They're very similar,
Not different enough.
But, of course, recently it's been just really weird with Russia and stuff. But, even when Clinton was trying to do the Kosovo thing and down there and all that stuff, he was getting resistance, because he was helping the wrong side, people thought. It's like, no, we're just trying to do the right thing. But once again, anything that has to do with, our imperialist, expansionism, and both sides have been on the same page, all going back to LBJ with Vietnam and Korea and everything. They've all been on board for these, these global,
interventions where we maybe shouldn't have been involved at all.
It's not even an intervention. It's us literally saying, no, we want the resources. We want control of the, of the action. We want our puppet leader in there. And if you're going to elect a socialist that's going to, take control of the resources and democratize it and spread it out throughout the country, then we can't have that because our corporate interests don't like that. And that's basically what America's turned into, corporate interests. It always has been, but to now, to the extreme degree where it's looking like this, 1800s again. So, I don't see the Democrats instigating these fights, as much as the Republicans, as far as having this undemocratic society, as far as having this unilateral vision of how society should work, and how people should live, and who should reap the benefits of this society. So any type of advances that were made, has been systematically deconstructed back to make America great again for the rich white dude and shit on everyone else. So, but the Democrats in retaliation, had to get money in politics because Republicans voted to repeal all the legislation that didn't allow that, and make it so even easier in some cases.
Speaking of which, we really need to insert this. When it comes to gerrymandering, Democrats had a proposition, I believe it was on the federal level, but it could have been anyways, they had a proposition to make gerrymandering illegal. Mm-hmm. Almost all of the Democrats, in the House at the time voted for it, and every single Republican voted against it. So for people who want to say it happens on both sides, yeah, go get bent.
No,
You know, I mean,
it's this false equivalence once again,
Right.
and I'm explaining why it's a false equivalence. Because the Democrats do it because it's the only recourse they have to play in this fucked up
Right.
game that the Republicans have created. So, money in politics, the fairness doctrine, stripping all these different provisions that try to make it more democratic in society, no gerrymandering, getting rid of the electoral college, choice, how do they call that, ranked choice?
ranked choice voting would be
voting.
awesome. Yeah.
These are things progressives and Democrats would vote for across the board to make this a more fair, equitable society. And Republicans, at every instance, not only will they say no to those kind of advancements, they're bringing us backwards to get rid of things that made it more democratic. So what are so yeah, Democrats do it too. They're so disingenuous, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't buy any of this crap that they're both the same. Maybe on foreign policy, yes, you have an argument there. But when it comes to domestic, internal things, no, there's a far difference in terms of, did they go far enough? I'm on like Bernie and AOC and Jasmine Crockett level of
Right.
progressive. We're getting further back to the socialist society we had in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and into the 60s. That's where I want to go. They try to call her a radical when she was just a middle-of-the-road politician in the 1950s. Middle of the road. The things that she's asking for is things we already had most of it. Like, some of it we were getting towards. So it's not like there was not like she's this radical they try to make her out to be. It's just that we've moved so far to the right.
Well, I mean, Bush in the early 2000s almost looks liberal compared to MAGA. I mean, just
right. The things that are just happening today is just off the freaking charts. And the saddest part is that you've discussed this. It's become so normalized that people don't even it's the boiling water again. But yeah, we've gone too far. Do you have anything else?
I think we should just kill it on this because I think we covered everything. If we missed anything, hit us up in the comments, and
Right.
one or both of us will do separate videos during the week.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the shark for a minute there.
But I mean, we bounced around, but I think we hit all the major points. So.
Right, yeah, and I kind of just went around in circles. But yeah, bottom line, yeah, they're fascists and they're cheaters and they're trying to rig the game even further and make your vote not even count at all.